Nice peppy music. Welcome to Prince of Peace Church of the Brethren. I saw a few other folks kind of getting into it there. Thank you, Scott. First Sunday in November, it is Council Sunday. There'll be a CBM meeting after church today, and food and business. So hope that many of you can stay. If you're looking at the bulletin, you'll notice that our theme, our message today is, I believe in miracles. And I found a C.S. Lewis quote that I thought would be kind of set the stage for this. Most of you know who C.S. Lewis was? That writer from England. And lots and lots. In fact, he has a book that's called Miracles. You might be interested. Anyway, his quote is, "The Christian story is precisely the story of one grand miracle, the Christian assertion that being that what is beyond all space and time, what is uncreated, eternal, came into nature, into human nature, descended into its own universe, and rose again, bringing nature up with him." And he calls that the grand miracle. Sometimes I think when we come to church, maybe we just don't always understand how miraculous it is that God is involved in our lives. Well, you may have announcements you'd like to share with the congregation. And we're going to suggest that folks who can kind of come to the front, so our Zoom folks can see the folks giving announcements and not just hear voices. So.
I thought you were going to make an announcement.
No, I'm Howard for the day.
She's Howard for today.
Good morning, Howard. As most of you know, and if you don't, this coming Tuesday is Election Day, and we get to go out and vote. Well, this Sunday is one of two Sundays that are very important to the Church of the Brethren here at Prince of Peace, and are important to the district and the overall brotherhood and the world as we as members of Prince of Peace Church of the Brethren. We get to vote on delegates that are going to attend the district conference and the annual conference, which establishes policy for the Church of the Brethren and what we're going to be doing and the direction we want to go. So please, I don't know if they can vote on Zoom or not, but for those of you who are here, please stay for the meeting downstairs so you can decide on the delegates that you want to represent Prince of Peace Church in the district and the annual conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate that. And we promise not to go super long with the meeting. I'm one that likes to get us through meetings. Yes?
I don't mind meetings as long as we can keep eating. Okay, I'm Pat, and hello to all Zoom people that I probably know. And I just wanted to say the little free library is up. And I think Henry wants to put shingles on it, but it is ready for books. So if you have books that you would like to give or donate to our little free library, that would be wonderful. Just bring them and put them in.
And Fair Trade Fair?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Fair Trade Fair items are downstairs, the baskets. They're also online, if you would like to look at them online and see exactly what's in the baskets.
Prince of Peace COB, is that the website, Prince of Peace website?
Prince of Peace, Church of the Brethren, COB, is it org?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So we have opened it up to Betty Harris and the Garden Gang and the neighborhood. So if there's something you were looking at and you think you might want it, actually we'll just make more. Take all you want, we'll make more.
Thank you, Pat. Pastor Gail.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for being Howard there. That's very nice. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you. And for those who didn't notice, I've been for a while, but I've been back a couple weeks, so it's great to be back. We will have potluck today, so please stay if you have food or not. Just come and please stay. And then not only do we have a free library, we have some sprinkler blowout and some sprinkler fixes, thanks to Eddie and Tom. And Henry was out there busy on Wednesday, so we're grateful to maybe have a solution to our sprinklers. And then there will be a painting party for the youth this Saturday at 3 p.m. So they're gonna finish painting their youth room, and there'll be no messy church, sorry about that. But there'll be a painting group at 3 p.m. And if you are around on Friday, there's Brunch Bunch, and the correct address is 3580 Wadsworth. So it's south. And you can see it correctly on your email and incorrectly in your bulletin. So do not go to Arvada, go to Inglewood. So that's the announcement. And then if you want to join us on Zoom for the congregational business meeting, I'll restart the meeting at 11:30, so same number. Everything would be the same. You can just jump back on if you're interested in the congregational business meeting.
Very good. I think we are good. And the announcements are in the bulletin. And I might mention that if folks on Zoom ever have anything, they could type it into the thing. I need a new battery, I think, on this. It's time to sing. Ask. You can stand if you wish.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving light the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come to me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving light the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
So as we head towards Thanksgiving, we often think about all the things we have to be grateful for. And so that's what we'll be focused on for a few weeks in a row before Thanksgiving. And this might be our theme song, We Are an Offering.
We lift our voices, we lift our hands, we lift our lives up to you. We are an offering. Lord, use our voices, Lord, use our hands, Lord, use our lives, they are yours. We are an offering. We are an offering. All that we have, all that we are, all that we hope to be, we give to you. We give to you. We lift lives up to you. We are an offering. We are an offering. All that we have, all that we are, all that we hope to be, we give to you. We give to you. We lift our voices. We lift our hands. We lift our lives up to you. We are an offering. We are an offering.
You may be seated. And now that we have batteries, it's kind of like we all had the extra hour. I think the batteries didn't get their extra hour of sleep. Time for our story for a living.
Hello, how are you? Good. So Neil has already introduced the topic I'm in, and my friend Pat commented on my clothes. She thought they were a little odd. Do you know why I'm wearing them? Okay, well, do you know kind of what they represent? Boom! Boom shakalaka, that's right. Election day. So we're going to talk about voting. I'm only going to read a little bit of this book, and then I'm going to show you a little clip. Only citizens can vote. Whoops. That's hard. Give me where I wanted to start. Every 2 years, we elect senators and congresspeople of our choice to make laws in Washington and be our state's voice. We also elect sheriffs and mayors and such. Do local elections count? You bet, just as much. When our founders drew up the Constitution, it's true, they said folks should vote, but they did not say who. Since then, our history is marked by brave fights waged by people who struggled to win voting rights for all of the races and for all womankind, and also for 18-year-olds, bear in mind. That means that quite soon you will get to vote too, so please pay attention. This matters to you. Only citizens can vote, and as you've just been told, people who are at least 18 years old. You must sign up in person or on the internet with name, address, and birthday. And one more thing yet. You can write down your party if you do not mind. Cake and ice cream, you're thinking? It's not that kind of, the party is not that kind. All right, so I was looking on the internet to find out just kind of when things happen. So let's go back to this timeline for a second. In 1870, black men were allowed to vote. 50 years later, women could vote. This is what I did not know. In 1920, it was till 4 years after women could vote before Native Americans could vote. That shocked me. I had no idea. And then there have been expansions to the Voting Rights Act that changes the age, that makes sure that you can vote in Spanish or English. So we're still working on getting that perfected. But there is a very powerful, powerful YouTube clip that I hope all of you will go home and watch. It's called Otis's Dream. And we're going to watch part of it, and hopefully I can get the mic on it so at least you can hear it.
Let me tell you a story about my grandfather. He'd already walked 6 miles to the first polling place. Now he's being told, you've come to the wrong place. A clear and blatant lie. Now he has to go to the Montville School. The Montville School is in a different city. I imagine as my grandfather walked, the sounds of the world crept into his ear. You are a second class citizen. You are 3/5 of a person. You are nothing but a Negro. But in his spirit, he heard his faith, and the song say, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. not just walking, but marching to the next polling place. He steps through the doors of the Harvard School, unsure of what he will face.
Yes?
I'm here to vote. I was sent here from the LaGrange courthouse.
You are in the wrong place. You're supposed to vote at the Rosemont School.
The clerk from the courthouse said I was to come here.
I don't know about that, but I know you're supposed to vote at the Rosemont School.
So here's a man who's already walked 6 miles to go to the correct place, and he's told that he can't vote there, so he goes 6 miles to vote at the place they told him to, and they said, no, you can't vote there either. And I'm not gonna tell you how it ends up, but there you go. So this is what I got so that I could prepare to vote.
I was waiting for that thing 10 weeks ago.
It's been for a while, and look at all this. That's a lot of information, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what I want you to do, your job, is if you see someone with an I voted sticker, such as now me, I just want you to thank them because they took the time to vote. And there are people fighting wars to be able to vote. There are people that walk miles and miles and miles because there are places that don't have polling places in convenient locations. There are people that have to stand in line for a really long time to vote. We have it easy. So all of us should be voting because, but sometimes people go, oh, my vote doesn't count. That's why I bought my little flag that says your vote does count. So without voting, our democracy goes down to 2%. So let's say a prayer. Dear God, you gave us in America the power to choose our leaders. Let us use that power wisely. Amen.
Thank you, Barb. Everyone's voice is important, and again, council meeting today is your opportunity to do that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say you should ask Barb to show you her socks, as well as her outfit today.
Yes, they are. They do fit the theme.
We're going to move into a time of prayer, and our prayer hymn, verse 1 of Healer of Our Every Ill, 377 in the hymnal.
Healer of our every ill, light of each tomorrow, give us peace beyond our fear and hope beyond our sorrow. You know fears and sadness, praise us with your peace and gladness. Spirit of all comfort, fill our hearts. Healer of our every ill, light of each tomorrow, give us peace beyond our fear and hope beyond our sorrow.
There are several prayer concerns in the bulletin, as well as ones that have been mentioned or written down for us today. Prayers for our country this Tuesday, that we will not become further divided. And prayers for the family of my first pastor and well-loved mentor, Lamar Gibble. Lamar Gibble was the peace office in Church of the Brethren, and he was in his 90s, I believe, right?
91.
He was 91, so just recently passed away, and has worked tirelessly for peace and justice in Church of the Brethren. We're going to pray for that family. We are thankful for Lyle's successful surgery. A little bit of the ear is gone, but we're glad that you're healing. And prayers of recovery. Our daughter Jessica, a high school friend, was hit by a truck and has had a pedestrian accident and cracked skull, and so we want to pray for Brian. And for Gail's sister Ann, who has cellulitis and sepsis, and hopefully is recovering from that. And Dave Isaac is also having surgery soon, and Connie has concerns as well. So let's pray together. God, you are the healer of every ill. And you use us to do that through doctors and lawyers and all kinds of folks who are there to help out our brothers and sisters who are in need. And we have several in our families and congregation that have been mentioned, and we want to lift up and to know that you are with them and will bring peace and healing and comfort. Sometimes it can be like a miracle when that healing occurs. And we thank you that your love encompasses all of us, that you trust us to be hands and feet to express that love and to bring miracles into people's lives. And so today, we ask that you be with us in our own lives, prayers for our nation, as there seems to be so much that needs to be healed, and for our world. And we think about places in the world where conflict is going, Ukraine and other places as well. We thank you for your servants like Lamar Gibble, who work tirelessly to try to bring peace into this world. And may we be inspired to never give up hope, but to know that the arc of justice bends towards peace. May we be ambassadors of peace as well. We pray together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It's time for special music.
Alright, this is a song called Fisher's Hornpipe. It's not on a hornpipe though, it's on a banjo. Can't explain the name to you, but there you go.
Thank you, Shane. The banjo is often considered kind of an American instrument. It comes African influences as well, so appropriate for the election season. Our scripture passage today comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verses 21 through 43. It's page 54, 55 in the Pew Bibles. Jesus went back across to the other side of the lake. There at the lakeside, a large crowd gathered around him. Jairus, an official of the local synagogue, arrived, and when he saw Jesus, he threw himself down at his feet and begged him earnestly, "My little daughter is very sick. Please come and place your hands on her so that she will get well and live." Then Jesus started off with him. So many people were going along with Jesus that they were crowding him from every side. There was a woman who had suffered terribly from severe bleeding for 12 years, and even though she'd been treated by many doctors. She had spent all her money, but instead of getting better, she got worse all the time. She had heard about Jesus, so she came in the crowd behind him, saying to herself, "If I just touch his clothes, I will get well." She touched his cloak, and her bleeding stopped at once, and she had the feeling inside herself that she was healed of her trouble. At once, Jesus knew that power had gone out of him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples answered, "You see how the people are crowding around you. Why do you ask who touched you?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman realized what had happened to her, so she came trembling with fear, knelt at his feet, and told him the whole truth. Jesus said to her, "My daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your trouble." While Jesus was saying this, some messengers came from Jairus' house and told him, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" Jesus paid no attention to what they said, but told him, "Don't be afraid, only believe." Then he did not let anyone else go on with him except Peter and James and his brother John. They arrived at Jairus' house, where Jesus saw the confusion and heard all the loud crying and wailing. He went in and said to them, "Why all this confusion? Why are you crying? The child is not dead. She is only sleeping." They started making fun of him, so he put them all out, took the child's father and mother and his 3 disciples, and went into the room where the child was lying. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I tell you to get up." She got up at once and started walking around. She was 12 years old. When this happened, they were completely amazed, but Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone, and he said, "Give her something to eat." Pastor, I believe in miracles.
Thank you, David. So, the first validation for a potluck is Jesus told the little girl to get up and take something to eat, right? So, next slide. At my Iona retreat, John Bell was the leader, and he read the workshop retreat on musings on the miracles. And so we got to study some of the miracles in the Bible. But would you believe that there are 31 miracles in the New Testament? So we did not get a chance to study all of them. But even more spectacular to me was that he shared with us that no two miracles are ever performed in the same way. And if you were asked to Jesus, could you just give us a to-do manual on how to do miracles? You would have to get 31 different manuals because there was no one size fits all. So evidently, there is no instruction manual on how to do miracles. But what seems to happen in each of the occasions of the miracles is that Jesus responds to each person as an individual. Each person needs something different for their miracle to happen. Did the miracles happen in a public setting? Sometimes. Did the miracles happen in a private setting? Sometimes. Were there witnesses? Sometimes. And were there no witnesses and only the one who received the miracle was aware of it? Sometimes. And how did the recipient respond? And how did the witnesses respond? They all had different reactions and different stories. So next slide. This miracle story that Dave read today is called Jairus' daughter. Jairus was a Jewish leader in the synagogue, and he has a 12-year-old daughter who is very, very ill. And so here comes Jairus. He must have heard that Jesus could do miracles, and so he begs on his knees for Jesus to please come and lay your hands on my little girl because I believe that you can heal her. So the woman then, this actually is in the midst of this, on the way, a woman who was bleeding for the same 12 years receives a miracle. Jairus had heard about the ability to lay hands and be healed, and evidently this woman had heard that Jesus could heal you and she believed it so adamantly that if I just touch the hem of his cloak, I will be made well. I would be made well. Well, this woman, next slide, we don't even know her name, and she has a completely different experience. She's been unclean and unable to be around people for 12 years. She can't be near others or for fear of making them unclean and having to go through cleansing rituals. So she doesn't get to shout out. She doesn't get to go and talk to Jesus face to face because she knows she would be ostracized and cast out for making such a ruckus in the middle of all this, all the people that Jesus had surrounding him. So she doesn't beg for anything. She simply believes that I can be healed if I just touch his robe. And she feels the healing in her body. So what is the reaction of Jesus? Who touched me? Just like kids in the backseat. Who touched me? She touched me. Somebody touched me. And the disciples then, oh, this was really a funny joke. Are you kidding me? What do you mean, who touched me? You're in the middle of this crowd. You're surrounded by people, and it's a narrow street. Believe me, the streets are narrow. And you have all these people, and you want to know who touched me. So I'm guessing the disciples, like us, thought that Jesus maybe had lost his marbles a little bit, but she feels the healing in her body. And once again, me and the disciples are wrong, and the woman is right, and she's healed miraculously. So next slide. They go back then to Jairus' house, and even after they get the news that the girl has died, there's weeping and there's wailing and there's commotion, And Jesus enters the house and says, "Why all this commotion? The child is not dead, but sleeping." Well, what's the reaction of the crowd this time? Oh, ho, ho, what a funny joke. Some of these miracle stories really are kind of humorous if you had them on a movie screen. So they're all laughing at Jesus, and so he says, "Okay, everybody out except for Peter, James, and John." And so they go into the room where the little girl is lying dead, or lying there, and so then she then has this miracle that he says, "Little girl, get up," and she does, and she's healed. So in this retreat, John Bell asked us, what are the questions that you would like to ask Jesus about how did you do this miracle? How did this miracle really happen? And so one of my questions was, why did you ask her to give, why did you say give the girl something to eat? That's not usually what happens in the other miracles. We don't know. Why did he say that? Why did he cast out everybody except the parents and Peter, James, and John? We don't know. But John Bell had done this workshop before, and back when the Iona was a big place for troubled youth to come, he was a youth worker on the island of Iona, and so he asked the same thing of the youth there. What questions would you have for Jesus? And one girl spoke up and said, "Well, I'd ask, what are 3 strange men doing in my bedroom?" Well said. So, I named this sermon, "I Believe in Miracles," because I don't think the report of miracles has stopped just when the New Testament was written. I think it did not stop with the publication of the Bible, and I know this because I've had some of you share your miracle stories, or sometimes we call them God incidences, with me. So there were several God incidents. I had to narrow it down just to tell you some of the stories that happened while I was traveling in Scotland and Ireland. And I wanted to share 4 of those stories with you. So at the retreat was over, and my clergy friends got on the train, went south. I got on a bus and went north, next slide, to a tiny little village, and got on a tour bus for the Isle of Skye. And here you can see hairy coos, as they call Highland cattle, hairy coos, and these little rainbows and farmers' houses, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So then the next day I had to get to my next bus, my next destination, to get back to Edinburgh. So I came on a bus, I went back to the bus stop, and there were 2 other United Kingdom folks there, and we were all waiting for the bus to go to Edinburgh. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. It was Sunday, and we waited, and so the bus never came. Well, eventually a bus going the other direction was there, and they were letting passengers on and off, so we asked them, "Hey, what happened to the bus 73? And he said, "Oh, that bus doesn't stop here. You have to walk about 50 yards up to the next intersection. Of course, there's no bus stop, there's no sign, there's no way to recognize that that's where you're supposed to be." So I dragged my 3,000-pound suitcase with me to the next place and try to find this bus. Well, it had already come and left. So the next bus was about 3 hours later. So the UK people had gone to this little cafe, and they said, "Why don't you come over here and wait?" The hotel was closed, nobody there. So we went to the cafe, and they said, "Hey, we've got someone who might give you a ride to the next town to catch your bus." And I'm going, "Oh, really?" So he doesn't know me, and he says, "I'm just going to check with my wife. I don't know him. I'm wearing a mask. It's COVID. He's in a car." And they go, "Sure, hop in. We'll go to the next town together." I'm going, "Oh boy, here we go." So I hop in the car, and I say, "Oh, well, so where are you from?" And they say, "Australia." I said, "Oh, great. My daughter was studied abroad in Australia, in Brisbane." And so I said, "Which part of Australia are you from?" "Brisbane." Of course. So how did we come together? They were very nice and we had a great chat and they dropped me off at the bus station and I caught the right bus and miracle happened. So next story, we can, next slide. Next story, I'm with my Irish mentor friend, Jeffrey, there on the left. And he takes me on this little walk to see the ruins of the Tintern Abbey built in the 1100s. So there's no roof on it, but there's still a huge structure there that was built as a thanksgiving for safe passage. And so the Christianity came to this little remote part of Ireland and they built this abbey. So on the walk, we go to the gardens and we meet this complete stranger. And it was a local man, the man on the right's named Johnny Fitzgerald. He was as friendly as he could be, and my Irish mentor has never met a stranger in his entire life, talked to everybody, whether they knew him, whether he knew them or not. So come to find out, this Johnny was local, and he was the man who cuts the grass 2 doors down from where my mentor friend Jeffrey lives. So we started chatting and talking about the Abbey and the people who gave it back to the Republic of Ireland. And so then he pops out, after we've been talking, he blurts out, well, you know, by the way, I buried my wife a week ago yesterday. And we go, what? And he was just looking as cheerful and normal as possible. And so I said, oh my, that must have been horribly hard. And he said, well, yeah, the first night I told my family that I have to do this alone because if you come with me the first night, I want you there forever. So I'm gonna just do it. I'm just gonna stay by myself for where I have to get over this. And he said, boy, was I glad when I saw the light of day the next morning. And so my friend Jeffrey then says, well, I'm gonna give you a hug. And our new friend Johnny says, oh, men don't hug. But he gave him a bear hug anyway. And then I said, well, women hug, so I gave him a hug. So what in the world, what in God's plan brought this newly widowed man and a mediator and a pastor together on the really remote little tiny walk in Ireland? Maybe that's one of those God incidences. So next slide, Jeffrey invited me to give a workshop with some Dublin a workshop on trauma-informed care in 2 places in Dublin. And the first group was hosted by a woman who works with at-risk youth in high drug use neighborhoods. So these kids were high at risk. And so she's a little bit rough. She has a bunch of piercings on her bottom lip, and she's working with, the kids who give her cred because she's a little bit like them, and she grew up in hard times as well. And so I was doing my workshop, and we had a little break, and one of the youth workers, a man named John, again, sorry John, you're famous, and there was, he wanted to take one of the handouts, and I said, oh, well, just a minute, that one's my original, but he said, well, let me take a copy of it. So next slide, he says, oh, I'm not just gonna take the original handout, I want the scrap paper that you were using when you printed that. So out of the bulletins in the office, some old scrap paper bulletins, this says, what does it say? What are you doing here? And so that's what he thought had takeaway. Not only was the insight on the trauma reduction skills, but he wanted this little poem and this little picture. And he said, this morning I had a dream that was just as vivid as any dream I've ever had. I dreamed that God was saying to me, you are promised. Just as loud and clear, you are promised. And that brought all this peace and comfort to me. And I came to this workshop, and here's this piece of paper that just confirms that I'm at the right place, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't have to doubt that I haven't made the right choice. God incidents, right? And then the next workshop was at the Methodist church where my mentor friend goes to church. So he's Protestant in a very Catholic country, and he goes to the Methodist church. And we did the workshop on trauma-informed care. And after it was over, one young mother came to me and told me about her God incidents. She didn't call it that, but she said, when I was born, I was a blue baby. I did not have enough oxygen. So they immediately grabbed me away, put me in an incubator to get me enough oxygen so that I could survive. And from then on, she has suffered with psoriasis all of her life. And she goes to doctors and they say, try this cream, try that cream, just like the woman in the story. Try this, try that. She goes, they just make it worse. Well, no, you must be imagining that. Well, nothing happened, nothing worked. It would get worse when she was studying for exams or there was stress in her life, and the breakout would happen worse. And then her mom happened to talk to a woman from Norway who shared about how trauma, even before you have words to verbalize it, can be remembered in the body and manifest itself in squeezing out in some kind of illness. So she asked me, have I ever heard of this psychiatrist, Dr. Gabor Mate? Next slide. I just dropped and stopped and I'm going, wait a minute. The week before I came on this trip, my clergy friend in Warrensburg, Missouri, handed me this YouTube clip of Dr. Gabor Mate, who had, when he was an infant, he was living in Hungary. His mom was a Jew. It was World War II. She was sure that the Jews were going to kill her and her baby. So she is in Hungary. She sees a stranger and she hands her baby over to a perfect stranger to save his life at 8 or 9 months of age. Well, from then on, he has unexplained trauma. No words to verbalize it, no memory of it, but his life has been in shambles. And then he realizes that he's reunited with his mother eventually, but he realizes that his body was trying to tell him that he needed these skills to release the trauma and reduce the trauma. And that's what this woman heard his podcast, read his books, and was able to release her trauma and reverse the psoriasis so that now her illness is much better managed and she doesn't have to be in constant fear. Those are just some of the reasons why I believe in miracles. I know that there are more stories out there, but just like I heard Bono say recently in an interview, I think that the miracles are tailor-made for each one of us. Maybe not every time when we need a miracle, but there are miracles if we can pay attention and hope and learn from what God's trying to teach us. Next slide. So just like Bono, the U2 rock star, said, I choose to believe that as unlikely as it may seem, we have a God who cares about the details of each and every one of us. And that's how he lives his life. And when stewardship time comes around every year, I am not worried about the hardship of how to tithe my money or my time or my talent. I am just buzzed and encouraged to talk about the ways that God has been miraculous in my life and ways that God has been miraculous in God incidences in your lives. And I hope to hear some of your stories, either through an email or at potluck today, because in the next 2 Sundays, I want people to have a chance to let those be heard. Don't hide them under a bushel, but tell the stories of God incidences with one another as we think about how to be thankful and grateful for God in this Thanksgiving season. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Gail. Our offertory time is a chance for you to support the work of the church. And you can give through Tithely or at princeofpeacecob.org. Click on giving. Ushers, please come forward. The presence of Jesus in our lives can be transformational. Let us sing together, Christ be in my mind. You may stand.
Christ be in my mind and in my thinking. Christ be in my eyes, in everything I see. Christ be in my ears and in my hearing. Christ be in my mouth, in every word I speak. Christ be in my heart and in my loving. Christ be in my life, each moment that I live. Christ be in my mind, in my thinking. Christ be in my eyes, in everything I see. Christ be in my ears and in my hearing. Christ be in my mouth, in every word I speak. Christ be in my heart and in my loving. Christ be in my life, each moment that I live.
May we remember that God is alive and well and sharing God incidences with us. Amen.